All right. Welcome back to the second episode of the second season of Navigating the Healing Path.
You're welcome.
I am one of your co hosts, Maggie.
I'm Nikki,
Yeah, the other co host.
the other one.
And together we make a fabulous duo, I would say, personally. But here we are. Today we are going to be talking about meditation as a coping tool, as a process for self-awareness, self-discovery. We're going to be going into the topic of the inner landscape and the benefits that Nikki and I have both received from playing with this resource in our meditations. And we're very excited.
Indeed. For any new listeners, we did cover this in the Laying the Foundation first season, where we did talk about the basics and beginning steps of meditation. And we are taking this opportunity in the second season of the coping skills and beyond idea of diving deeper into the meditations, and in particular, the joyful world of your inner landscape. Well, I'm going to assume it's joyful because I like it.
I also
it brings
find it
me
to
a
be
lot of joy.
Yes, same. It's quite fun.
Indeed. So yeah, we're going to just get more into the things that have worked for us and how our meditation practice has grown and evolved over the years. So we would love it if you stuck around.
Yeah.
And tuned in and listened. So before we get started, let's just take a moment and connect with each other and ourselves and drop into our heart space. And we like to do that through the breath. So receive a breath with us. Just notice and bring that consciousness down into your body, into this present moment, opening yourself to receive any messages that you might need in this time, any ideas or inspiration. Let's connect one more time with our breath. And in. And release. Okay. Meditation. I really enjoyed talking about meditation. I remember hearing all of the resistances and why you can't do it, and it's not easy, and my mind won't turn off, and all of the resistances. And it's like, I get it. I do. I hear you. But if we can learn to accept that that's part of the actual process, is observing and noticing the mind thoughts, that's the job. That's the work. And as you begin to navigate your own mind and you learn to adapt and take a breath and become present, over time you get clarity. It becomes more quiet. You've learned to manage the mind and quiet it. And that could be kind of like a long, drawn-out process sometimes, especially if you're doing it on your own, But that's also why there's so many beautiful resources out there on YouTube and individual people's websites and healers. There's guided meditations. And I know I personally benefited a lot from going to a group of people who are meditating, where there was a sound bath and the guided words of a channel, and we got to share and have these experiences and feel it and then express it. And it was very open and non-judgmental, and it was different for everybody. And that was one of the things I really noticed, was everybody had a different experience. It was the same words, it was the same guidance, but we all had different experiences within ourselves. And so the inner landscape is this concept of you, like a whole world inside of your being, and learning to drop down, dropping that consciousness down into your body to be, to create space for your own healing, space for you to connect with guides, and a space to just look and feel and release.
I like what you said at the beginning of this explanation of those limiting beliefs and these mind thoughts that come in at the beginning journey of a meditation practice. Because that was spot on with my journey when I first started. I felt like I was doing it wrong because my mind
Me too.
was not, yeah. And I think this is a very common experience for people, is my mind ran the whole time. There was not a single moment in time where it was not talking. And so our egos somehow think that we did it incorrectly because there's this weird magical idea out there that meditation is linked to, I don't know, these like monks on the top of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this weird concept that I feel like a lot of us don't actually have a true grasp of what meditation really is or what it really means until we start to do the work and we start to move beyond those thoughts. But that is the place that everybody starts at, and that's very important to acknowledge and to understand. And for anybody out there listening who has been doing meditation for themselves or just started or has maybe meditated here and there but has felt like their mind has been running the whole time or they didn't really get anything out of it, that means you're doing it right. And that's a sign to keep going, because there's a whole world past that. And I think the inner landscape for me on my meditation journey really took me to the next level of self-understanding and to really explore my internal space. But the guided meditations were definitely very helpful in the beginning because it gives something to the mind thoughts to listen to and to place your attention and your focus on. It gives you something to ground yourself in when you do end up getting lost a little bit. It's an anchor. And so those are very necessary steps in creating that space within yourself to explore deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to talk more about the specifics of the inner landscape, from the first introduction of it and setting yourself up, and just kind of talking about the world of exploration that can happen when you build it, and the possibilities. If you're down for that, if that sounds good.
Yeah. The only thing I want to say before we get into that is like some of the advice that I was given or that I learned from my transformation teacher when I started meditating was, it is a process. There are gifts to be offered in meditation. You just don't know what they are until you start doing it.
Mm.
So you don't go in with expectations or a certain timeline, because that's not reasonable. But through the practice, you build this metaphysical muscle to hold space for yourself, to take a breath, to observe, to collect the data of the programs that run your mind. And if we think about it like going to the gym and doing weightlifting, how long does that take to see results? Do you go for a week and lift weights and be like, I don't see nothing? But did you adjust anything else? Did you adjust your diet? Did you adjust your thoughts? Did you adjust anything to make that more seeable. But sometimes it's just happening. Like your weight stays the same, but you're trimming down because fat and muscle, it's transmuting itself.
Mhm.
This is the same kind of practice, just not a muscle you can see. It's something you feel. Meditation is an experience. And the thing to remember is nobody can tell you what is real and what is not in your meditation. If you can feel it in your body, that to me is real. That is an experience. That is visceral. Right? Because there's a lot of magical things that can come through for you in that state of being, when you're in that frequency, when you're in that space. Miracles happen, connections happen, spirit moves through you. It gives you all that healing energy. And part of the work is learning to notice. Notice the thoughts. Notice how your body feels. Notice when things start to tingle, and not because they're falling asleep because of lack of circulation, but because the energy is flowing, right? So this is a progressive practice. These are exercises. That's why they call it a meditation practice, because you start where you start. You start where you are, and then you just go from there. And you always hear this, in order to go out into the cosmos and like connect with the universe, the portal to get out is actually in. And that's where the inner landscape can really come in handy, because it's a way for you to connect with you in a really lovely way that's personal to you. So I'm trying to actually remember how I introduced it to you. It was probably a guided meditation. Like, do you remember? Do you remember a couple years ago when we were working?
I'm trying to tap into the memory now. I do remember for a few months, the practice that we did was sending the roots down.
Grounding, yes.
From my core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like that was my first step as well. And I probably just brought you through my progress, like the things that I did.
It was the grounding and the chakra balancing.
That is like, for me, that was my first step, right? So I needed to get grounded so I would stop dissociating and be present with my emotions and what was happening. And so I learned to connect my energy to the center of the earth. And that also gave my emotions a pathway to be released through. Right? So that's when I learned to like release whatever I was holding on to, the anxiety that we have, that pent up energy that gets stuck in our hearts and our stomachs that doesn't feel good. Giving that the direction down into the earth is really helpful.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I feel like these beginning steps of meditation is a lot of awareness building and grounding and setting up your whole system to have healing processes and information come through for you. Whether it's you're asking like, what's the right move for me? What should I do next? What information do I need? What wisdom do I need in order to get through this challenge? Or just a place to just de-stress, right? First and foremost, it helps your body de-stress. Like, even if your mind is going, your body is relaxing. Because I think we were talking about this earlier, like you could be in a meditation. You're completely focused and present, and you can feel your head start to nod. Like you're falling asleep, and you're like, what are you doing? I'm not sleeping. But my body was so relaxed that it is resting, even if I'm having my mind count my breaths, because giving your mind a task is really helpful in the beginning. That's like why for like the first month or two, I would just count my breaths. I would see how high I could get. Not 2 months. It was definitely a month, like at least. Like it wasn't that, because I'm like, okay, what's next? I was ready to move on to like, what else is there?
That's interesting. I counted in a different way. I did the 1 through 10 and then restart, and doing it in tandem with my breath.
The breath is one of the things that is good to bring you into your body.
Yeah.
Like just focus on your breath. Focus on your muscles. How do you feel? Can you consciously go in and connect and ask them to relax, to release? And it's pretty great. And I love it. And I do love the inner landscape. So let's go into there a little bit, because it's fun. Like when I first started meditating, like I did a shaman retreat like when I was in college, and we had this whole healing space. You set it up, and I was like walking through the park, and then there's this like learning place, and there's the thermometer place, and then all these cliffs and caves. Like, this is it's
Beautiful.
a whole process, right? It was a whole meditation we did, and it's always been there. It has been there ever since I created that space for myself. It was there, and it has evolved over the years. But then also I put it away. I never tapped back into it for like decades. But when I started meditating again, or meditating as a practice, it was still there, exactly the same. I'm like, well, that's fun.
So you did the visualization
Like
building
way back
one
then.
time?
One time. Yeah. And then as I
that's so
started
cool.
going back like 10 years ago, when I started having a consistent meditation practice, or really I started 10 years ago, it has evolved over the years. I have a new cave. This is whole evolution. We can go into that later too. But I don't always use it. Right. I've had other things I did when I first started playing with this. Is I started imagining like a big field, and there was this big tree, and I would go meditate in this giant oak tree, and it had this perfect like little section where I could just slide into it, and I'm one with the tree, and I'm like connected. And this other time I started to imagine myself, when I would go into my meditation, I would end up bringing my consciousness from my mind down this elevator into my heart, where I was met in this really interesting twilight area with a purple lake.
Ooh.
And these like blue trees. And I would go and lower into the lake to get into my meditation.
That's so fun.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what that was about, but that was what I did to get into the meditation, to be grounded. And then that kind of fell off the way. And then it just goes. You know, I have a wooded area. I just have so many places that you can go and connect with. So I do love I've really enjoyed being there with you as you've like discovered this meditation practice that you like worked on, and like your
love
own
my
inner
inner
landscape.
landscape.
It was so much fun to watch you create it, and also just witness its growth on its own without trying.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit of your story as you began to go into your inner landscape?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the first main experience was.
It was the tree.
I did start at the tree? Okay.
That was your first touchstone. That was the first like main.
Oh, that was like my spawn point.
Yes. There it is. Yes. It was your spawn point. And you meditated there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that.
That's literally what it is. It's just a spawn point. Because there's a point where I was so used to doing the grounding, like sending the vines down to the Earth's core visualization. And we had worked on the chakra clearing and activating. And I had a really hard time. I still don't know that I can like see the colors in my mind's eye. So this was kind of like the first real like visualization and the practice of seeing things in my brain. But yeah, I remember spawning. And I was just in, I don't know if it was the lotus position, but I was sitting in like a meditative position. And in my inner landscape, the essence of me, or maybe this is my higher self, I partially wanted to ask you who is in the inner landscape? Like what facet of ourselves?
All of them. Everything is in there.
Okay. Because I feel like I've associated the being that I see as of me in the inner landscape as my higher self. And I have this like blue, this light blue body that's just kind of like radiating, I don't know if like sparkly energy is like the right thing, but it's a loose figure of a human. But like it's slender and it's energy and it's blue. And there's no real details.
Neat.
So when I spawned in, I was sitting and I saw this like being, I could like look down and that's what I saw. And I was sitting up against a tree. It's a redwood tree. And I felt the tree behind me and it felt like I was there. I feel like this is a place that I've visited before. I don't know exactly where, but I feel like I've sat against this tree. And it gives me such a specific feeling every single time I spawn. But yeah, it started out with the tree, and I like kind of looked over to my left and I saw a trail going that way. And I'm kind of surrounded by this big forest of, I think they're pine trees, or maybe not pine trees, like evergreen trees. But the main tree in the center, that's the big tall red tree. That's my meditation tree. And to my right, I saw another path. And I think that was my starting point. I don't know that the center meadow straight ahead of me was there until a little bit later. I think I started off exploring the left and the right sides. So I walked through the forest. I feel like the lake was first, maybe.
Maybe it was the lake.
That sounds familiar to me.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I think that was the guided meditation. And then you came with me. You came to me and were like, I have a spawn point at a tree. Like that happened for you on your own.
Okay.
But I think that might have been, the lake.
Okay. I think that was the
have
first place
put
I
people
explored and saw.
by a body of water. That is usually like my first guided meditations is
Okay.
to be by a body. Like what's your favorite body of water?
Right. That's
And
ringing
creating
a bell.
that space. Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me. I always forget this stuff anyway.
But yeah, so I took a walk to the left, followed this trail, and through the trees, just around the corner, there's just this beautiful lake in the center. There's some sand surrounding it, but it's mostly engulfed in a forest of trees. Yeah, the lake was the first part. And then I discovered the right side of the trail from the tree. And that led to, I'm trying to remember when the cabin got created that
I remember the cabin
that my
being
heart
one of the
resides in. It's my heart's cabin. A little warm, cozy cabin. Oh, I think it was there, but it was empty before.
Yes. It was.
At the first time I noticed it. It was just like this empty, like no lights. It was like in an abandoned cabin pretty close to the right side of my tree. And when I was exploring the right side, the right trail, I walked past this cabin and I was like, okay, interesting. It kind of scared me a little. But I walked past and I was just like, okay, you're here, thanks. And the right trail is longer than the left one, but it takes me through the forest. And I think when I was exploring this side, I felt a couple animals following me for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a deer, like a baby deer that kind of like popped up and was like, oh, hello. I'm like a ground squirrel or two. Fun stuff that just pops up. And that side takes me to, it's like this nice green top of a hill. And there's a singular picnic table with an overhanging oak tree next to it. And there's a swing on one of the branches of the oak tree. And it overlooks these beautiful rolling hills. And at the bottom of the rolling hills is a flowing river. So I like to come and sit on top of the picnic table and just overlook this beautiful valley. And there's usually a nice, beautiful blue sky. So these were the first things that I built, I guess, or that kind of appeared as I let myself walk down these trails. And the center meadow, I think, came shortly after that. So when I spawn in, I'm naturally looking straight ahead of me. And there's like a wall of those evergreen trees, but there's a big opening right in front of me. And there's a pathway that goes directly forward. And when you take the path, there's all these beautiful, colorful flowers. It's just this huge meadow on both sides of the trail. And it led to this little house. And it still is, but it's evolved from a house over the years, and it's turned into this whole thing. But this is where I communicate with spirit and where I can go to ask for guidance. And that house was the first time that I had a conversation with one of my guides. Dave. Do you remember Dave?
I do remember Dave.
I don't know if that's his actual name, but in the inner landscape, his name was Dave.
That's the name he gave you.
Yeah. Yes.
You can trust that.
And I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I think he was just there to move things along for me. He was funny.
Yeah.
He's a funny entity. Thanks for letting me explain that, by the way. I enjoyed walking
Yes.
through that again. I
Yes.
love my inner landscape.
Me too. I love hearing about it. I love being able to hear the evolution of it.
Hmm.
What did it feel like when you're exploring this and these things show up? How do you know that it's real or to even care? Like, what is the feeling that you get from being there?
Mm. It was hard in the beginning to allow myself to go with the flow of what I was seeing because my mind was definitely like, You're absolutely just making this up. Like, I. I don't know how this is supposed to be helpful. All of these things. But thanks to your guidance, just helping to facilitate like the regular practice of continuing to explore it and to just trust it. I feel like a big factor was you reminding me that I can trust what I'm seeing. And I think without that, it wouldn't have become what it's become. Repeat your question, please.
Yeah. What does it feel like? How do you know that it's real? Where do you feel it in your body? How have you learned to trust it? Like, what is the feeling now when you go back and you're there? What do you feel like? What's your feeling state?
I feel like I drop really deeply into my solar plexus when I'm there. Like it feels like I'm having this experience through my gut in a way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Does it feel different from your like waking life?
Yes.
Does it feel the same as a dream where you're not in control?
No.
Does it feel like a memory?
No.
So when you're seeing these things, when you're allowing your vision to show you and you're connecting with yourself, your space, your spirit guides, it feels different in your body than other waking life or thoughts or dreams. It's a different feeling state.
It is. For me, yes. I don't know how to explain that feeling state. It feels deeper than real life. It almost in a weird way feels more real. There's a deeper, calmer quality to the feeling that I have when I'm there. It definitely feels much more devoid of thought. Like I really feel like I'm connected to my heart and my solar plexus when I'm in my inner landscape. And I feel much more connected with spirit or maybe my higher self, or it all just feels deeper. And I'm kind of doing this like downward motion with my hands for the listeners. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Is it a similar experience for you?
Yes.
Okay.
For me, in the inner landscape is peaceful. It is quiet. It is open. There is so much peace and love, but I've also fostered it there.
Right.
Right? That's what I was doing, creating this great space for me to relax, to connect, to do some work, right? In like a high vibrational way. It's not always like that. When you're beginning to explore even just parts of your body, you know, like I've done this when I work with people, was I bring their awareness into your heart. What does your heart space look like? Look around. What do you see? What do you notice? And they just share what they see and they feel. And it's been dark. And a lot of times I'll have coinciding visuals. I'll say like what I see and perceive in this space through like my channel.
Mm-hmm.
See like lots of ropes, nets, and like things are holding it together, and they're like, yes. So I'm like, great. What do you want to do with that? You want to leave them? It could be nice decoration. I mean, you can decorate this place any way you want. And that is the truth. Once you go in there and you just see what is, don't judge it. That's not conducive to healing. But just honoring what is. Yeah, it's kind of dark. It's a little smelly. It's kind of crowded. Things aren't organized. Great, note it. Do you want to turn on a light? You want to clean it up? You want to take down the cobwebs? Do you want to befriend one of the inhabitants if there's a spider building all these cobwebs? You want to go make friends? Like what would you like to do? And they'll come up with their own answers. And so you ask yourself those questions when you discover the shadow parts or the dark parts or the places that hurt. You sit there. Who's here? Is there anything you want to tell me? Body? You holding on to something that I can look at? And we can release it. I learned this really great process of releasing into the earth. We can bring in a giant flood and just wash it all out. There's so much you can do. You just have to decide. And what feels right. What would create more space. Sometimes you just need to cry. Sometimes you might find a hurt version of you inside. And you get to go offer them support. Give them the comfort that they didn't get back then. I can't tell you how many times I've brought the inner children version of me onto my lap. I'm like, I got you. I'm here. I've learned a lot more skills, so I can help you. I got this. You don't have to act out in this way. We don't need to run away and hide because it feels safer. I can stand up to the monster. I got this. There's so much healing that can happen. And transformation within you. And there is something that happens in that space where you begin to feel better.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the biggest reasons why I even started doing this work, was so me personally can feel better living in my body and living with my mind. I did this so that I can feel better, so that I can help manage my mind and calm it down when it's not serving me very well. And I can help heal and bring light to those dark places that are full of sadness and anger and resentment. I have skills now and tools that I can help meet and greet myself with love and compassion. And it's just something you have to experience and commit to, showing up for you. Don't expect anything to change. You have to let go and release all expectations. You can set your intentions. Those are amazing. That's helpful information because your thoughts matter. Your thoughts are telling the universe what you want more of. So if you're like, I'm here to heal and remain open to be in my highest good and receive all of that, great. But now let that go, so that then you can receive it. So then you can just create that space for it to come in. And sometimes you got to let some shit go before that good thing comes in. So it's a process, and it's best done with community. You're not alone. You don't got to do this alone. It feels so much better with others who are respectful and, in their hearts and, hold healthy boundaries. And there's just a lot of beautiful experiences to be had. And it still surprises me what you can discover. I was in this one cave, so many times. It was mostly hi, you're my healing cave. And this one time I go in there because I was guided in there to go meditate in my healing cave. And I'm like, cool. It was just a green cavern of green crystals. I'm like, this place is bitchin'. I love this
sick.
place, right? Green healing. I am here for my heart, because I was doing heart work.
I was just about to ask.
Right? Yep. I was specifically working on my heart center.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was guided to go to this place that I had created a long time ago. And I was asking, or actually being grateful for the help and the support by my spirit guides. And I was like, where should I sit? And then all of a sudden, without even trying, my perspective shifted. The whole thing just slid. And I noticed all of a sudden on the right, there was a stairway going down.
Ooh.
And I'm like, whoa, there's a lower floor. I had no idea. Cool. It was revealed to me. And I'm like, great. Should I go down? They're all like, yes, go down, please. That's why we showed it to you.
Yeah, because you imagine it showed me this really mysterious stairwell and just, nope.
Nah, that's too scary. It's dark. Meanwhile, I'm surrounded by light beings. I'm like, come on. No.
You're in your inner landscape. You could literally spawn a torch. Come on.
Seriously. I cast dancing lights.
Spawn disco ball.
So I did. I went down and I explored and I found this really neat place. And they're like, sit there. And I'm like, sweet, I'm sitting. I'm listening. Look at me listening to my guides. You know, and they just guided me. They told me what to do. They're like, just sit here and receive. We're going to give you this light and stuff. So it just, things get revealed to you when you need it, you know?
Yeah.
And you can do all sorts of things. It's free reign. You are a magician in this space.
Mm-hmm.
If you can think it, you can create it. If you think of someone that you miss that has passed, they can visit you there. Because when you can calm your mind down and drop in, you're open and receptive. And that's why loved ones who have passed come to us on our dreams, because, well, our conscious mind is good night. I want to see you. You know, you're most open in these dreams. So when people visit you after they've died in your dreams, that's real. In my understanding, in all of the people that I've talked to, channels, mediums, spirit guides, spiritual leaders, they all say the same thing. If you dream of someone who's passed, that is actually them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can get yourself into a state of being in meditation, you can then open yourself up to connect with them again.
Yeah.
My grandmother
Yes.
used to come visit me all the time in my healing space when I really missed her. Like, I know you've had an experience with that, with someone visiting you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when you shared that, you were so excited, like, oh my God, let me just tell you this thing happened. Oh my God, it was crazy. I loved hearing that story.
I started bawling when it happened.
Mm-hmm. And that's how you know when your emotions are responding, when you're having feelings in that space, that is real.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's what the inner landscape has really strengthened for me, is my trust in what I'm seeing and experiencing in a non-physical realm.
Yeah.
Because the whole inner landscape, it really is like you're building your own open world video game.
Mm-hmm.
And you're exploring these different places, one place at a time. And things evolve over time. Like that shed, I guess it felt more like a shed in the beginning, but like that abandoned cabin that I first saw, over time, the more that I visited, I finally worked up the courage to go inside and to check it out. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of like nice and cozy. And I ended up doing some heart chakra work as well and focusing on that. And that ended up being the new home that I ended up helping renovate and bring life back into it. And that's where my heart resides. That's my heart's little home. But it was very fascinating that it was once cold and abandoned before I started doing that work. But that was a manifestation of the state of being that my heart was in at that time. And that represented how I was kind of a lot more closed off and I wasn't in tune with my heart. And I had a lot of walls up. Creating and renovating this cabin for my heart to reside in, that perfectly coincided with the opening of my own heart. And I feel like through that process grew a lot more compassion for myself and brought me so much more in tune while I was doing other work to strengthen that. So it's just fascinating how like the inner landscape it can be connected to whatever you want it to be connected to in your body. But I feel like there is something really strong about the chakra systems. And I feel like when we're doing specific work with them, I find that something will pop up in my inner landscape to go with it.
Mm-hmm. It connects you to that portal, that energy source center in your body.
Yeah.
Right. And it will, quote unquote, physically manifest in your inner landscape for you to acknowledge its current state and then hold space and do work to better it in your highest good
Mhm.
and like honor it and be like, okay, cool. Because I remember you saying like, talking about the empty cabin, you're like, I think I'm going to move some things in. I think I might put some alchemy things over here, or like you were planning on renovating it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you go back one day and it's like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
It's there.
Uh-huh.
It's done.
Yep. I just like walked in and I just all of a sudden saw all these things.
Yeah. Because you set the intention.
Yeah.
You grew that part of you, the awareness around it, and then gave it something that felt good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a place where you can nurture yourself.
Yeah.
In a very loving way. And you can take care of your inner child, your inner children, your inner teenager, your angsty young adult. What the fuck is happening? I know you're still there in the throes of it, but all the versions of ourselves have room in there to be heard, to have space, to heal.
And it's nice to have these places set up because when you're going through something again later down the line, you have a place in your inner landscape to go to, like where to go to be able to access that part of yourself and to give yourself space or to resource
and heal.
Yeah.
And do that because
my healing table.
Yes, I was waiting for that. Because
Cool.
I remember that one just showed up out of nowhere. You were like, "Oh my God, Nick, you have a healing table."
Yeah, it was like underneath. Oh my God. Okay. Can I explain the journey of my healing table?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had that house in the center, at the end of the meadow, and you had mentioned like a healing table a couple sessions into working on this inner landscape.
I was talking about mine.
Yeah.
I was telling you about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so when I went into mine, I'm like, I want a healing table. So I had this healing table just kind of like pop up just actually I think it was in the backyard of this house.
Yes.
The first time.
Yeah.
But eventually I popped back into a meditation one day and then all of a sudden it was to the side of the house under a gazebo, which was super cool. And there were just like beautiful flowing curtains. And I had contact with the spirit and guide, lovely, lovely feminine spirit who facilitates the healing for me, which is awesome. But now the house got eaten by the earth in a very loving fashion.
This is new information for me.
No, I thought I told you about the temple thing that I have now. It's no longer a house.
I am drawing a blank.
Wow, okay. So I used to have that house, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it had like the stairs going up and there was like a nice little like front porch and everything, and I would go in there and I would talk to Dave.
Yes.
A while ago, I pop in, sitting at my tree, and I'm just looking forward, and there's like an earthquake happening, and the house, there's just a big hole that opens up underneath the house in the ground, and it just sinks down, and I'm like, where you going? What's happening? And this huge pyramid-like temple thing came out of the ground in replacement. I don't know if anybody has watched the show She-Ra. Shout out. I love it. It's one of my favorite shows. But it kind of mimicked one of these structures in that show. And now I just have this big like pyramid that's like this crystal white temple thing. So that's there now.
But I love that because it feels like to me an upgrade.
Yeah, yes. Upgrades happen all the time.
Right?
They're so fun.
I love that you got to witness it though. Because first the house was empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you nurtured it and you declared, this is my heart.
That was the cabin though.
That was the cabin. What was the house then? What did the house represent?
That was the place that I would go to talk with spirit as I needed.
Okay.
So I would go into that house and then I would like wait and I'd be like, guys, I have a question. And then someone would show up. Usually Dave would show up in that house. But now I'm connected to different people with this temple.
Right.
Different guides.
Yeah. So that's like the spirit center.
Exactly that. That's my spirit center.
Excellent. And so it went from like a nice, cozy, comfy, big house to this very large temple.
Mm-hmm. And it operates
old, ancient kind of like.
Yeah.
you know.
And it operates like the Doctor's TARDIS.
It's bigger on the inside.
It's bigger on the inside. There's all these rooms. I have this big Earth hologram globe in the center of it on the ground floor when you walk in, and it gives me access to.
Oh my God,
to
you've
things.
so inspired me because I just got reminded that I have an inner temple that Karen helped me create
Ooh,
or
nice.
see. And
Shout out
it's
Karen.
Shout out Karen. I'm like, oh, I want to go play in there. I have a door that's connected to the Akashic record.
Yo,
you know, like
sick.
I love that place. I'm like, I'm gonna go explore the temple now. I'm gonna go like have a special meditation this week. Be like, all right, let's do my healing here now. Thank you so much. So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. But just like this whole thing, it really feels like a hug to me. It feels like an allowance to enjoy being imaginative and to explore a non-physical realm. I don't know, it's just so nice because the space that I've cultivated for me, it's anything can be there. Like nothing is off limits, but especially emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it feels like a hug. It feels like I'm kind of going home in a way when I go into my inner landscape now.
It's like a place to consciously, quote unquote, embody the spirit self.
Yeah.
And giving that part of us room to be and play.
That's why I was wondering if when we're in the inner landscape, are we our higher selves? Does our consciousness go up into the higher self, and that's who's walking around?
It's the observer.
Okay.
It's the witness. Because we can connect to our higher self in there, and we can connect to all the different parts of us. I think the consciousness, right? The observer, the witness of our life, the one who's taking the notes and learning the lessons, not the mind, right? Because that stays outside. That's counting. That's doing something else. But yeah, I think that part of us, because that was my understanding when I started doing the meditation out in space, like when I would go to Orion,
right,
and be like, who is this? Because I just asked my higher self to guide me here, and there she is, and I'm like following her. I'm like, what? Who am I? You know, I know I left my mind back in my body because I checked, right? Or I kicked it out, but like, go be quiet. I'm busy.
You ask your ego to leave the room.
Yeah, I do. I'm
Same.
like, yeah.
It's helpful.
So I'm like, and that's when I heard, it's like, no, you're the observer. You're the piece of the spirit that's embodied, that's conscious, that's feeling the feelings, that's going through this, so that we can then take those lessons and then send them back to the universe as like, look what I did. Isn't this awesome? Look at my lesson. I just got this, and this is my understanding. You can have it now. So yeah, that's what I think is like, is the witness. That's what you're working with.
That makes sense. It's so weird having these different
parts of you.
Yeah, having these different parts of you and then doing different work with these different parts. I feel like in a way it kind of, I don't want to say enables, but it kind of like enables duality and goes against the concept of oneness in a way.
But duality is a universal law.
Oh, that's true.
Of course.
Yeah, that is part of the experience. Yeah. But it's super trippy.
It is to experience it.
To experience like these separate parts of the self, but then to try to grasp the concept of oneness and that we are all one consciousness and we're just, every single one of us is just a singular different fragment of the same greater consciousness. I'm going to get lost in space if I continue talking about this. But yeah, love the inner landscape. I feel like it has been a very, why did I almost say transformational tool. And there's so many possibilities. And yeah, like you said, I've also had a loved one come and visit me. A crow popped up on my shoulder and I started bawling my eyes out and I knew it was my uncle. And then crows started appearing in the physical world for me after that point. Fascinating. I was just kind of thinking about meditation as a coping mechanism versus a regular practice, just to kind of like tie it into this particular season. and the theme that we're kind of going with. Because I feel like there were times when I was using meditation as a coping mechanism for my anxiety. But now I feel like I've reached a point where meditation is just a regular practice. So that way I can connect with who I truly am. And it's not really a coping mechanism anymore. And it's just a way of life that I want to tap into as much as I can. Do you kind of know what I'm getting at?
I do. And what I'm hearing is meditation is the Swiss Army knife of tools.
Okay. Wasn't there something else that we labeled the Leatherman of healing?
I don't remember,
Maybe
but
that
I
was
do.
meditation.
Maybe.
Okay.
It is what it needs to be for you in that moment.
Yeah.
Meditation is a mechanism. It's a thing. It's a tool that you use to help regulate your emotions, to de-stress. It's a way to connect to spirit. It's a way to connect to yourself. It's a way to connect with a piece that needs to be healed, and you run a process around it. That's why you don't know what all the gifts are until you start exploring it. Mm-hmm. And keep seeing how it evolves along with you. Like my inner landscape has evolved. Like I was telling you earlier, one of my favorite things that I ever did for my inner child was invite her to live in my healing garden. So after I get down the cliffs and do this whole thing into my healing space, and I go beyond these like big giant doors of like God's gate, it's like monumentous doors. Behind that is my little cottage that I developed because I had loved Matilda, and Miss Honey had a cottage, and I'm like, oh, I want that cottage. So I put that cottage in my healing space, surrounded with flowers and a garden and a tree in the back, and then just over there is the beach with the healing table where I've had many healing sessions from many of my guides and connected with all sorts of people. But I was doing this inner child work one day, and I was sitting with her, and she was sitting on my lap, and I'm just loving on her and being like, it's okay. And I'm like, hey, do you want to live here in the cottage? I'm like, that's nice. That feels nice. My little 4-year-old version would have loved that. And she's like, yes. And she like jumped up and she started to explore. And I'm just like, I'm just filled with joy. I'm like, I'm so happy that she's happy. And I'm like, oh, look at that. She's feeling better. Like that felt so good. And I hadn't visited there in a while. And I go back one day to do some healing because I was called back. And then there were more. I'm like, oh, you have friends. She goes, yeah, I invited them. And I feel like every time I've done like parts work or like healing work with my inner child, she's just been sort of there, been like, hi, I have a new place for you to live. You're healed, right? This is where we live now.
Just a little chauffeur.
Right? Because
let me show you the way.
My 4 or 5-year-old self was so social and loving and fun and just wanted to make people laugh and just play games, and she was just so lovely and so happy. And so she's sort of like come on in. She's like the guide. Yeah. Right? She just does this.
The happy, bubbly host.
Right? And then became like, I saw like a teen version, and some of them I did actually personally invite. I'm like, hey, we're doing a thing now. Would you like to live here? So I'm doing this new meditation like the last couple of weeks, and I'm like working on expanding my channel and connecting with higher beings of light so that I can receive greater wisdom. I'm doing all of this work and healing and stuff. And yesterday, my higher self guided me back to this healing space because I'm like, that's fine. I could do the healing bubble work there. That's great. Let's just go. Mm-hmm. But I was actually really surprised because it expanded. And I'm like, oh, it's changed. What did you guys do? Plus, there was a lot more of them there. I'm like, wow, it's like the children of the corn. Like, we're just going to be overrun with children over here at this point. But I'm like, no, this is sweet. Please just show me around. What'd you do? Because I'm like, I got something to do. But they're like, let me show you real quick. And they had created this underground tunnel under the cottage for like womb work, like healing, like in the earth, this underground cavern kind of space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's fun. That's neat. I love that. And then there was a tree house in the tree. And I'm like, okay, I really love that. I am here. I can't go explore the treehouse today, but noted. I love what you guys are doing. Like, please, this is your space too. I can't. This is super fun. And then I went off and did my meditation, and they were there supporting, and the unicorns came, and it was great. But yeah, like it's kind of fun and delightful when things evolve and change and grow. And I feel like that's part of the signs and symbolism and the synchronicity that I am healing.
Yeah.
That all of these younger versions of me are at peace in this beautiful place that I've created.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, look how much I've healed. Look at all of them here. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's you're creating a space for them.
Mm-hmm. To be
Yeah.
free and themselves and joyful and just whatever. Or if they need some healing, go to the cavern. Have a sweat lodge. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. I love this work because it feels good. It feels good to be there. And if it doesn't feel good, that's okay too. Just notice and ask, what do you need? You know, hypnotherapists have done that. Just like, hey, what does you need? What does you want to say something? You want to give her something? What can you do now that you didn't get then? And that's the work I love doing, is like when you can connect to a part of you and you can treat it the way that you want it to be treated then. You can greet it or meet it where it's at and love it and honor it. Be like, yeah, I know that was hard. And so much healing and relief and release can come just through that.
Yeah.
Just through honoring the pain that she went through or he went through.
This is inspiring me to go in and invite some new playmates into my landscape, because I feel like the way that I've been using it for the last couple months for myself has definitely been more of a meeting ground for me and my guides. And that's usually where I go when I have questions or if I feel like my observer needs to rest. Usually when I meditate, I feel like even if I'm not feeling called to go into the inner landscape, like I still feel like the energy of the redwood tree behind me. And I can feel like the roots and everything there. But it really just feels like the main hub where so much of this healing work kind of happens is in the inner landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And in that space, in this beautiful, magical, if you want to call it a dream world, you can call it a dream world. But like you've said numerous times, you know, what is that difference between what's supposedly real and not real when you're feeling it?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're seeing these things. And so whatever experience you have in the inner landscape, please know that that's real and that you can absolutely trust what you're seeing and you can trust yourself.
The brain can't tell the difference between a memory and like what's happening now.
Yeah.
It's all chemical downloads.
Mm-hmm.
It's hormones. It's the dopamine. It's all the things that run through our system. And that's the thing with PTSD. When you're traumatized, the brain gets stuck on this is happening right now. The car accident, the war, the other issues, right? The brain thinks it's happening still, which is why the healing is important to help reframe the reality and help it process so that it could put it in the past. Like, this happened to me. It's not happening right now. But in the body, it is. It is literally happening chemically. They are downloading these feelings. It is real. The triggers that create this, like you have to go through it again and again and again. And so when we learn how to have these processes and help our brain make sense and put it where it belongs, whether we have to release the emotion attached to it, That's like why sometimes you have to do it over and over again, but it gets easier and easier. It gets more and more diluted.
Hmm.
So who's to say it's not real? There's so much that we can experience that we can't explain with our human mind or technology. That's fine. You don't have to believe in this. You don't. I have experience. I have physical sensations that I get through this practice. I feel connected. I feel lighter. I feel more awake and clear and supported and loved. That was actually what I did today, was I connected to the frequency of love. Because it was like, okay, well, how high do you want to go? Do you want to go enlightenment at the very top? Do you want to go peace? Do you want to go joy? Or do you want to go love? Because those are like the top ones.
Right.
And I'm like, It was like a menu. I'm like, let me see what love feels like,
Yeah.
And then you just think those thoughts. Like, I am connected to the frequency of love. I am love. I am in love. I am connected to love. This is the love for like these are the thoughts. And then you notice how your body feels.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it within yourself.
Yeah. The connection between the brain and the body is so fascinating. Because to your point about PTSD, I've heard that when we're watching a movie, like especially like a scary movie, for example, like that's why our bodies jump, is because we are engrossed in the visuals and the sounds. Like our brains and our bodies can't really distinguish
that we're not in danger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unless we have that awareness that like, hey, we're watching a movie. And that helps. But if you forget that and you're so engrossed in it, it feels real.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these reactions.
That's one of the reasons why you really can't argue with somebody's reality.
Yes.
Because you do not know what they're physically or emotionally going through, or even spiritually, that is their truth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. You're not in their body. Like, what I said wasn't that hurtful. I'm like, you don't feel it like I do. Like, you're just being irresponsible with your words and being callous or brash or whatever. And it's like, that doesn't feel good for me.
Yeah.
I'm a very deeply feeling person, which is why all of this work in meditation has been super fun, because it's helping me trust what I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
and connecting to a higher power and doing just all of this so that I can feel better and be more of a manifester in my life instead of just an innocent bystander to my programs.
Yeah. Stepping into that
giving you your power.
Role.
Yeah, like working with the universe and the spirit, and learning how to use your system, your mind, your body, all of that to work in your favor and not sabotage or block you, out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a process. It's a journey. It's worth exploring, in my humble opinion. It is the best thing that I feel like anybody can do for themselves.
I'm fully with you. And this makes me just want to go home and throw some headphones on. Not to listen to music, but to block out the sounds around me so I can really tune into me and what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And just ground and just be. Because meditation is such a beautiful feeling thing.
Indeed. Does feel really good. Like, once you get past the hard parts, kind of like with everything else, once you get past like those beginning rough stages, oh man, you just get this ability to connect to the flow, to the love, to the light, to yourself.
It's like running. Absolutely horrible in the beginning, but runner's high after a little while. And then that starts fueling the enjoyment. I have no experience, by the way. I am really not a fan of running. So it's hilarious that analogy. Yeah, I do hear it. The runner's high or something else.
Yeah, totally.
I'll be over here on my meditation high.
Although, that being said,
running is meditation.
It is.
And anything can be meditation.
It is. But too much meditation, you get dysfunctional spiritually, right? Because if you're always there up in the clouds, right, or in the universe and everything, you can I'm not going to say get lost up there, but it needs to be grounded. which is why physical movement, activity, and exercise is important, because that's the balance. Like, we can't be thinking all day. We can't think our way out of problems. We can definitely think our way into solutions. We can meditate and we can get high vibes and we can help all of that. But if we don't bring that down to the earth and like work on our body, we're going to be dysfunctional. And I learned this, I had this insight from the Artist Way.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because that's what she was saying. Like, if you just spend all your time up there doing that, it can get kind of dysfunctional and you'll just sort of stay in the clouds.
Right.
Which is
because you're not integrating that
Right.
into your physical reality.
Right. And taking the actions that are required to get you to your goals.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you can't stay up there. We are not monks in the Himalayas or like in Nepal or like wherever. That's not, we're here living life. We're having lives. We're having purpose. You know, we're
Not to
connecting.
say that monks don't have purpose.
No, but they're on a different path.
Yeah.
You know, that is not the
Different path
normal
than we are.
general population path.
For sure.
They are the guides, the way showers, you know, the sages that deliver this amazing wisdom.
Yeah.
But they're also really fucking physical. Like, so many
Oh, that's
monks,
true.
the
Yeah.
Shaolin monks, like, they meditate, but they also are really strong warriors.
They're also chopping wood and carrying water, so I hear.
Right? And quite balanced on posts. But yeah, because you need to balance the mind, the body, and the spirit. Like, all of this. That's what yoga is about. The 88 practices in yoga,
Right.
just to bring that balance, you know? We can't live in a meditation also, as fun as that is.
Yeah.
But we can bring it into our daily lives, whether we're washing dishes. You know, there's walking and waking meditations. Repetitive things can be meditative. You know, it's really, meditation is the practice of being present. Present to what is. You're not in the past, you're not in the future. Meditation can help you process your past. It can help you visualize your future. But its main function and goal is to help you be present.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You read my mind. I was actually thinking about wrapping this episode up with just kind of all of the possibilities and all these different types of meditations that are out there. Like, there is really an infinite amount for whatever you are looking for and feeling like you need. Because I think for you and I, most of the time, the inner landscape meditation is usually pretty helpful. And I feel like what we are looking for. But there are times where I much more need, I guess, using it maybe as a coping mechanism in a way, but just becoming present in my body and connecting deeper in this physical realm and not so much a spiritual one, not so much leaving here and going out into the ether and being in the clouds. Sometimes I need it more to ground into what's really happening in this physical realm. And sometimes a body scan is something I still need and is helpful for me. There's like transcendental meditation and all of these different things. It's a beautiful, big, wide world.
Experiment, find your path, try things out, and give it like a good concerted effort. Trying one and done, no, you gotta give it a little bit of time. Kind of like when you start a new medication. Take it for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
See how you feel.
And usually minimum 20 minutes.
20 minutes. It's less than a sitcom episode. You know? It's
ideally
not
longer
that
if you can handle it. But
Yeah.
I've heard like Sadhguru and a lot of other people say like the 10-minute meditations like really aren't enough. But I feel like
better
those have
than
become
nothing.
popularized. I
Yeah.
feel like that's more a practice in mindfulness versus a meditation.
Right.
To really sit down and meditate, there's a lot of stuff often that you need to get past because there are so many thoughts. And meditation, I feel like it's a fine wine. The longer you sit there, the better it's gonna get. You know?
Yeah.
And the more stuff you can move past. And I know Kyle Cease likes to call meditation just sitting in silence.
It's okay
Or
if you fall
listening.
asleep sitting up.
Listening to silence is what he calls it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Listening to the soundtrack of what is
Yeah. And
like around you.
and he'll just do it for like 2 hours. He'll just listen to silence, and there's so much that comes up from the ego. All of these programs and all of these frustrations, all of these things just naturally come up when we just sit and do nothing It's so funny how the mind works. It just doesn't want to sit and do
Which
nothing.
is why people don't want to do this also.
Right.
That's the hard thing. When you don't know how to process your emotions, when you don't have the tool set to do that, what do I do? And then you're just opening a can of worms and they're just all over. You're like, I don't know what to do with this, but like, that's okay too. That's why you have mentors and therapists and groups and self-help books.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to get the resources that you need to help you learn this. Podcasts, videos on YouTube, like we are in this technological age of information. What you are needing and seeking is there for you. Just take those steps and be courageous and watch your judgment and be kind, and it's a process. A lovely one if you can learn to be okay being uncomfortable, and I think that's how we know we're growing, is if you're uncomfortable, you're doing a really good job.
I need that reminder so much.
We don't grow in comfort. We don't grow when we're content, so we do some things that scare us and make us feel alive, like jumping out of an airplane or having sex with a stranger or random other destructive habits, to avoid our feelings. Yeah, I don't know, that just took a weird turn, but here we are.
Here we are. Is there anything else in your channel that you feel?
No, I
needs
feel
to be
like
said?
we really kind of covered the bases. It definitely feels like the end of this transmission for us in this conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
For this, it feels good. I do love it. It's just one of my favorite things to talk about, to do. I love doing guided meditations. It's one of my tools that I help people heal. Like on my table, I'm like, cool. I love your mind. I hear your mind. Let's go into the body. And I just help them process or look or discover pieces. And it's just such a fun, versatile tool. And it's worth exploring. And I don't believe that when people say I can't meditate, I like to call bullshit. I mean, I hear you. I honor what you're saying. I do. But that's a limiting belief. It's a lie of the mind.
If you sit there and your mind is running the whole time, if you're thinking about a million things, but you sat there for 20 minutes
With your eyes closed?
with your eyes closed, you meditated.
You did?
Congratulations.
Well done. Keep it up.
Yep.
It will eventually be quiet. Or you can learn just to direct it. Or count your breath. Connect with your body. Give your mind something to do while you feel. So.
And speaking of guided meditations,
Yes.
to end this episode out, we would like to let the listeners know that are interested in setting up an inner landscape for themselves, that over on our Patreon account, we have a guided visualization meditation led by Nicki for tapping in and setting up an inner landscape for yourself.
Connecting with yourself.
Yeah.
And seeing what's there.
So for those who are called, interested, guided, want to learn more, you can pop over there and
Find us on Patreon.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for this conversation, for going down this journey with me. I've got to learn a lot myself from guiding you on your meditation journey, and it's been so rewarding and fulfilling, and I'm so happy that we are sharing this with others because we find a lot of great joy, and here we are sharing it.
Received and agreed.
And for anyone wondering what we have coming up next week, we are going to dive into shadow work and the ego programs, at least a bunch of the ones that we've already tracked within ourselves and the ones that we know that are out there in the collective. So we just want to discuss a little bit about beginning that very important work to become friends with the shadow.
Yes, well said. So thank you to all of the listeners out there and to all of those who tune in to our episode next week. We are very grateful that you're here, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Indeed. Peace and blessings.
Bye.